welcome back to the Done Deal YouTube channel, and today you join us in the United Kingdom as we're over to test drive a couple cars, but most importantly we're here to test drive the all-new X1, and actually more specifically the all-new iX1. It's a prototype, and actually the day we're here is the day they have commenced building it on the production lines in Germany. So it's definitely going to be a little bit of an exciting one, checking out some of the faster kind of high powered M SUVs, and then also everything down to the Active Tour 2 Series. Now right now I'm in the third generation X1, and this is kind of what we're here to look at today, and it's my first time driving it. So the first generation in Ireland and England, it sold about 40,000 units, and then they doubled that with the second generation. So it's looking good for the X1. But then where it gets really interesting is BMW UK estimate that in Ireland and England, almost 2/3 are expected to be fully electric versions, the iX1, which I have actually already been for a drive in and we'll be talking about in this review. But it's certainly going to be an interesting day, so definitely make sure to subscribe and we'll get into the review. So to begin with, the iX1, what is it, what power is it, how quick is it, and what's it like to drive? So it has a 64.7 kilowatt hour usable battery, and the WLTP range of that is about 438 kilometers. What that means, in my experience of driving electric cars, it means that you should be able to get high 300s on a single charge. It charges at 130 kilowatts, which means you should be able to go from 10 to 80% on a quick charge, if you can find one, in less than half an hour. So it's pretty quick to charge, it's got a decent range. Then it comes down to driving it. Now we'll definitely talk about styling, because I actually think that's one of its best features. But in terms of what it's like to drive, so it's an X drive being an X1, which means it's all-wheel drive. When you drive it, you definitely get the feeling that it's a little bit more front biased, which is quite unusual for a BMW, as traditionally they're rear wheel drive, but it does drive very, very well. It's certainly planted on the ground. On top of that, in terms of power, it's 313 brake horsepower, which is a lot. If you think about it, that's what a Mark 7 Golf 4 has kind of been for the last couple of years. So it's definitely very, very quick. Now in terms of styling, I definitely think the Mark 3, or the third version of the X1, is by far superior to all the other ones. They've actually made it taller, wider and longer, and it definitely has a huge amount of presence. Often with a lot of X cars, whether it's been the X3 or the X1, you just get the sensation that they're just a small version of an X5 and they don't really do it for you. But nowadays, things like the X3 or the iX3 is really good, and the same with the new X1. It just has a certain presence. As I sit here and drive it, I certainly feel like I'm in a nice, big, very comfortable and safe SUV. In terms of practicality, so the ordinary boot is actually bigger now than its predecessor in all of the petrol and plug-in hybrid versions, but the fully electric one, due to having obviously electric motors and batteries, is a little bit smaller, but it's still 490 litres, so more than enough space. And then of course you've got ISOFIX points in the rear, which means you can get the baby seats in, which is brilliant. Then another one I want to talk about, because with SUVs you think, okay, things they want to have is space, and it's got that. The second thing you want to have is obviously capability. It is all-wheel drive. Now will it take on the Sahara Desert? Probably not, but it certainly is good on a slightly icy morning. And the next thing is towing. Now that's where it gets interesting. You see, it can be fitted with an electric deploying tow bar, and that on the electric car can tow up to 1,200 kilograms, which isn't very much, to be completely honest. That's 1.2 tons. There's not a whole lot of things you could tow, but you would get away with a light caravan or maybe a horse box or something like that. However, if you get the diesel or the petrol version, then it increases to 2 ton, and that is actually pretty respectable. Other things to know on the styling, I really like the new rear lights. I think the 3D effect to them, and then also how slim they are, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Then from the front, the headlights look brilliant, and this being the M Sport, it just has a little bit more oomph to it. In terms of separating the iX and the ordinary X1, there's not actually that much that separates the two. The biggest difference is a few blue accents here and there, although they can actually be deleted. So it's just the subtle iX1 that you'll notice, which really is the only difference. Now in terms of the interior, well, this is probably one of the biggest upgrades of the X1. You get that curved screen that we're seeing in pretty much every new BMW. 10.25 inch screen there, 10.7 inch screen there. It's the most up-to-date software. It works really well. The touch is phenomenal. The seating position, these are the M Sport seats, but they're very comfortable. And then you've also got this kind of floating island down here with some wireless charging below. And as a whole, it's a very pleasant place to sit. Now, when I drove the iX1 earlier, the standout feature, apart from the way it drives obviously, is it's got a new piece of technology which is adaptive regenerative braking. So if you haven't driven an electric car, what electric cars can do is they allow you to almost drive with one pedal, and they use the mass of the car slowing down to recoup power, and it does it without applying the brakes, and basically it slows down a little bit quicker than a normal car would when you take your foot off the accelerator. Now where it gets interesting is the iX1 is able to read the car and the signs and the traffic and everything in front of you to decide whether or not you need this adaptive regenerative braking, and it is fantastic. It really works. Often when you go to a car launch like this and they tell you about this technology, it's a little bit fiddly and not really foolproof. However, I have to say it was exceptional in the iX1. Any flaws, to be honest, there wasn't many. The only thing, and this isn't exclusive to the iX1, is that sometimes when you actually want to apply the brakes, it can be a little bit snappy, a little bit inconsistent on the brake pedal. And that's very true for a lot of electric cars. You tend to rely on the regenerative braking, and so when you actually press the brake itself, the feel through the pedal is a little bit on or off and a bit shocking. No doubt after a while you would get used to it, but it is one thing that I did notice. Okay, so next up on our list is the iX M60. This is the creme de la creme of iXs, and just listen to this. It's like being in the cinema with surround sound. Anyway, I'm going to scan this car out, leave Kinhouse, I think is the name of it, and we'll go for a drive. And actually I'm going to compare this to the X7 M60i, which I drove earlier on today, because they're obviously very different cars, but they are both very fast SUVs. So let's see, petrol versus electric. Okay, so we're out on the open road now, and I haven't yet. I've resisted the urge to put my foot down, but I do know that at my right foot is 610 brake horsepower. Here we go. That is violent. It's really, I'm going to do it again. 2 seconds, let this car go. A little bit up ahead, and I will go again. Okay. Oh my goodness. That is just another level. Comparing this to the X7 M60i, this obviously has about 100 more horsepower nearly. But it's definitely quicker. Now granted, that noise, as lovely as it is nowhere near the noise of a V8, but it does give a really nice sensation. It's so quick. You would lose your license in a matter of days if you owned this. It's so addictive. Now obviously I'm talking about the power because this is the iX M60. It's the one that you talk about the power. If you want to watch an in-depth review of the iX, then hit the link up there. It is a really good review. Obviously I'm going to say that, but it is very in-depth. It gives you a sense of what the car is like in terms of the fit and finish, the infotainment system, which is absolutely fabulous. But today we're talking about the right pedal. It's just disgustingly quick. It's so scary. You could scare anyone, and it feels so wrong. And I got this sensation earlier when I drove the X7 that it just shouldn't go that fast. It's too big, it's too much like a boat, but it just goes. And it really does feel almost like a boat getting on plane. It just way takes off. It's just absolutely class, I have to say. Really, really brilliant. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video on our little excursion to the UK for 24 hours. It's been brilliant for me, not only to test drive the likes of the iX1, but also to drive some of the cars that we're rarely going to see in Ireland, like the X7 M60i. Just cool experience. Obviously I'm here on my own, so the quality, the drone shots, they're not quite there, but nonetheless, hopefully you did enjoy it. And if you did, please make sure to give us a thumbs up and of course subscribe. And if you'd like to see us go to any more launches or any other insights, then make sure to comment below and let us know what those are. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.